My wife secretly moved $300, $0 to her brother's offshore account, then accused me of infidelity and tried to take everything in our divorce. Now I'm fighting over our family home, and I just found out she's been sabotaging my business for years. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch his wife cheating, but here we are. The most shocking part: it wasn't just the affair that wrecked me. It was everything else that came out afterward. How deep her lies ran, how she'd been plotting behind my back for years. I want to tell this story because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe someone's going through the same thing and doesn't see it yet. My wife Lisa and I had been married for 8 years. At first, everything seemed perfect. Great job, nice house, 2 kids we loved, and a future we both thought was secure. Lisa was always a little bitchy, quick to snap, but I chalked it up to her being stressed or just her personality. She was gorgeous, always dressed to the nines, and she knew how to turn on the charm when she wanted something. Honestly, I was crazy about her. And I thought she felt the same about me. But over the last year, I started noticing small things. She'd be on her phone more than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd cancel plans with friends suddenly or get defensive when I asked about where she'd been. Then the big signs started: missing money, weird messages on her phone, and her suddenly being overly protective of her social media accounts. She'd always told me she trusted me, but her actions didn't match her words anymore. One day, I was going through our bank statements for the 100th time, trying to get a clear picture of our finances, and I saw it. A transfer of $300, $0 to her brother, Mark's offshore account. At first, I thought maybe it was a loan or an investment or something legal, but I couldn't find any explanation that made sense. Mark's account was offshore and Lisa had been remarkably secretive about the whole thing. I asked her about it and she brushed it off, said it was an investment opportunity she was exploring for us, but I knew better. Something was off. That's when I started digging deeper. I found out she'd been secretly moving money around for months, more than just that $300, $0. She was hiding cash, funneling it into her brother's offshore account, and I had no idea why. I also found out she'd been talking to her ex on the sly, exchanging messages about secrets and making sure everything's in place. When I confronted her, she flipped, said I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of cheating and stealing because I was insecure. But I wasn't just paranoid. I had the receipts, the evidence. I'd seen her phone records, her emails, and the bank statements. And then things got even worse. She started accusing me of infidelity, saying I was cheating with my assistant, a girl named who I barely even talked to outside of work. It was her way of deflecting, I think. She knew I was onto her, and suddenly I was the bad guy. The emotional hit hard. One minute I was furious, feeling betrayed on every level, financially, emotionally, physically. The next, I just felt numb, like I'd been punched in the gut so hard I couldn't breathe. I loved Lisa, but I couldn't believe how deep her lies went. She lied about everything: her fidelity, her intentions, her loyalty, and all the while, she was secretly trying to take everything from me, including the house we bought together and our savings. The worst part: she had the audacity to say she was doing all this for us, that she wanted a better future, but all I could see was greed and manipulation. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get away with this for so long. And I realize now that trust is a fragile thing. Once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. But I also knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let her take everything, especially after discovering she'd been sabotaging my business for years. I started planning my next move. I knew I had to get my facts straight, protect what was mine, and figure out whether I could salvage this mess or if I had to walk away. I didn't want to believe she'd betrayed me this badly, but the evidence was irrefutable. I was hurt, angry, and feeling more betrayed than I ever thought possible. It was clear this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her stealing from me and lying to my face for years. That's where I stand now. I'm in shock, trying to piece everything together while she's still pretending everything's fine. The house, the money, the business, everything's at risk, and I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I need to fight for what's mine. After I found out about the offshore account and the money she'd moved, everything changed. I felt like my world was crumbling and I didn't even know where to start. Lisa acted innocent at first, acting like I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that she'd never do something so reckless. But I wasn't born yesterday. I had the proof, bank statements, her emails, her phone records, and I wasn't about to let her gaslight me into thinking I was losing my mind. I decided I had to confront her again, face to face, and get some answers. I arranged to meet her in our bedroom one evening after the kids were in bed. I wanted to catch her in the active. She was hiding anything. When she walked in, she looked nervous more than usual. Her eyes darted around and she kept fidgeting with her bracelet. I was already boiling inside, but I kept my voice steady as I asked her about the money. Lisa, where did that $300 go? Who is Mark and why did you transfer that money offshore? She blinked, trying to act innocent. It's just an investment, okay? Mark's helping me set something up. It's complicated, but I swear I'm doing it for us. You don't need to worry. That was a lie. I knew it was a lie. I could see it in her face. Her tone was defensive and her words didn't match her actions. I pressed her further, asking for details, demanding to see the paperwork. She finally snapped, raising her voice, accusing me of not trusting her, of being controlling, of thinking she's some kind of criminal. She told me I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of cheating because I was insecure, and then she threw in her usual line. You're just jealous because I still look better than any woman you've ever been with. That was her way of dismissing everything, deflecting, insulting, trying to make me feel small. But I was past that point. I was angry, hurt, and disgusted. I told her she wasn't going to get away with it, not without consequences. I wanted answers and I was determined to get them. I told her I was going to hire a private investigator if I had to find out what else she'd been hiding. The next few days were a nightmare. I started digging into her phone, her emails, her social media. I found dozens of messages between her and Mark, mostly about money, future plans, and some very inappropriate exchanges. She'd been talking to him about how she wanted more, and how she was tired of pretending to be the perfect wife. It wasn't just financial betrayal, it was emotional too. I saw her flirting, joking about sex, and even making plans to meet him secretly. Meanwhile, she kept up her act of being the loving wife in front of the kids and friends. She'd come home acting like everything was fine, but I knew better. I could see it in her eyes, she was hiding something big. I decided I had to confront her again, this time more directly with proof in hand. One evening, I sat her down and showed her everything, screenshots of her messages, bank statements, and even the email trail. Her face turned white. She tried to deny everything, saying it was all taken out of context, that she was just talking to her brother about investments, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew she'd been lying for years, that I'd had enough of her manipulations. Her reaction was classic. She got angry, yelled at me, told me I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat or steal. She called me a controlling asshole, accused me of spying on her, and then she started crying, claiming I was destroying her reputation and our marriage. She said she loved me but needed more excitement, that she was bored and that I was too boring. That was her excuse for everything, her cheating, her money laundering, her sabotage of my business. I was devastated. To hear her say she loved me but was doing all this behind my back, it cut deep. I felt like I was fighting for my life, trying to hold on to the remnants of my marriage and my sanity. I realized she'd been lying to me for years, sneaking around, lying about her fidelity, her money, her intentions. The woman I thought I knew was a complete stranger, and I was furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. At that moment, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to do something, something drastic. I started thinking about legal options, about protecting my assets, about how to get her out of the house if it came to that. I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not when she was actively trying to destroy my business and steal everything I'd worked so hard for. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only to realize the nightmare was real, and the person I trusted most in the world had been lying to my face for years. The worst part, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful fight. I was already imagining the legal battles, the custody issues, trying to keep my head above water. Financially, but I also knew I had to stand my ground. I owed it to myself, to my kids, to do whatever it took to protect what's mine, and to make her face the consequences of her actions. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep this rabbit hole went. It wasn't just about the offshore account or her secret messages. Lisa had been systematically sabotaging my business for years. Small things at first, minor mistakes, missed deadlines, miscommunications. I thought it was just her stress or her being bitchy, but it turns out she was actively working against me. I found emails between her and some of my competitors, trying to undercut my contracts, spread rumors, and even sabotage the shipments I was expecting. When I confronted her about this, she looked me straight in the eyes and told me I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt our family. But her own emails told a different story. I had screenshots of her discussing how to bring him down, how to make sure the business crashes if she had to. It was her way of punishing me. For what I now see was her growing resentment. She wanted power, money, control, everything I'd built. I was sick to my stomach. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I was staring at this woman who had been secretly working against me for years. It was like finding out the person you trusted most in the world was your enemy. I started to see all the signs of her trying to turn the kids against me, telling them I was a bad father, that I didn't care about them. She'd been planting seeds of doubt in their minds just to make herself look better, another way she was trying to manipulate everything. Meanwhile, she kept up her act of being the perfect wife. She'd come home, fake tears, ask me for forgiveness, say she'd change, but I knew better. I saw her phone, her emails, her text messages. She had a whole parallel life, one where she was plotting, lying, and scheming to take everything I had. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How did I miss all this? How did I not see the warning signs? The worst part was the emotional toll. I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Every time I thought I had uncovered enough, I found something new, another lie, another betrayal. It felt like I was fighting a war on every front. I had to start legal proceedings, protect my assets, and prepare for the worst. I knew I had to act fast before she drained everything from me, including the house, the savings, and my reputation. I hired a private investigator, someone I found through a recommendation. Within days, he had uncovered more than I could have imagined. Lisa had been funneling money into her brother's offshore account, yes, but he also found out she'd been secretly meeting with her ex, Tom, more than she admitted. They'd been exchanging intimate messages, planning to run away together if things got too messy. I saw the emails, flirty, suggestive, and full of promises. It was the final nail in the coffin. Seeing all this laid out in black and white, I felt numb. I'd spent years trying to make this work, giving her the benefit of the doubt, believing her when she said she loved me. But now I knew the truth. She'd been lying, deceiving, working against me on every level. I realized that I couldn't stay. Married to someone who saw me as an enemy, who was actively trying to destroy everything I'd built. The legal battle was looming. I started gathering everything I could, bank statements, emails, recordings of her conversations, witness testimonies from friends who saw her behavior change. I wanted her out of the house, out of my life, and I wanted to protect what was mine. I also had to figure out how to stop her from taking the kids or the house, which she was already claiming as her own. It was a brutal period. I'd never felt so betrayed, so angry, so broken. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I failed to see the woman I loved was capable of this level of deception. But deep down, I knew I had no choice but to fight. Fight for my reputation, my business, my family, and my dignity. I had to be strong, even when every part of me wanted to just give up and crawl into a hole. Because if I didn't stand up now, I'd lose everything, maybe forever. And I wasn't about to let that happen without a fight. The legal process started faster than I expected. I hired a lawyer who specialized in divorce and asset protection, and from that moment, everything shifted into high gear. Lisa was already making her moves, trying to spin stories, manipulate the kids, and claim she deserved half of everything. She'd even gone so far as to threaten me with false accusations, trying to turn the tables and make me look like the villain. The first thing I did was get a restraining order. I didn't trust her not to try to take the house or drain more money from our accounts. I also needed to keep her away from my business, which she was still actively sabotaging behind the scenes. My lawyer advised me to freeze all her accounts and start gathering evidence of her financial misconduct. The offshore transfers, the secret meetings, the emails, everything was fair game now. Meanwhile, Lisa was still pretending to be the perfect wife in front of the kids. She'd cook dinner, act loving, and then sneak around behind my back. I caught her once trying to access my email accounts on her phone. I was furious. How dare she invade my privacy after everything? I changed all my passwords and made sure my accounts were secured. I also hired an IT specialist to help me monitor any suspicious activity. One of the most shocking things I discovered during this time was her attempt to sabotage my business directly. I found out she'd been calling my clients, spreading rumors about my competence, and even trying to get some of my key suppliers to cut ties. It was clear she wanted to destroy my reputation, so I'd have nothing left to fight with. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about money or infidelity. It was about revenge and total control. I was angry, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stay focused and not let her manipulate me anymore. I kept detailed records of everything: emails, phone calls, financial transactions, even her attempts at sabotage. I wanted to be prepared for whatever legal battle was coming. I also started talking to friends and colleagues about what she'd been doing. Some of them knew she'd been acting strange or secretive, but nobody suspected the extent of her betrayal. The custody issue was looming. I wanted to keep the kids away from her toxic influence, especially knowing she'd been lying to them about me. I hired a child psychologist to evaluate the situation and help me prepare for the court hearings. I knew I had to prove she was unfit, not just because of the money and sabotage, but because of her unstable behavior. Throughout all this, I felt a mix of emotions: rage, heartbreak, frustration, and helplessness. But I also knew I had to be strong for the sake of my children and my own sanity. Every day brought new challenges, new surprises. She'd make false accusations, try to manipulate the court, and twist everything to her advantage. But I had the evidence, and I was determined to fight back. It was around this time that I finally realized just how much she'd been lying. Not just about the money or the affair, but about everything. She'd convinced herself she was entitled to everything I had: my house, my business, my savings, and she'd gone to great lengths to get it. Her bitchy attitude and constant lies were all part of her game. I was starting to see her clearly for the first time. A manipulative, ruthless woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. I couldn't believe I'd let her get this far, but now I was in full fight mode. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life's work and my family. The legal battles would be tough, but I knew I had to hold my ground. I had to protect what was mine, and I had to make her face the truth: her lies, her betrayal, and her greed. I was exhausted, but I was also more determined than ever. This wasn't just about money or revenge anymore. It was about justice, and I was going to see it through. The court dates kept coming, and every hearing revealed more of how deep Lisa's deceit went. She showed up with her lawyer, trying to spin stories about how I was an unfit father, how I'd been neglectful, and how I was secretly sabotaging her. The courtroom was and I quickly learned how skilled she was at twisting facts to serve her narrative. But I had all my evidence: emails, bank statements, witness testimonies, and I made sure to present everything meticulously. One of the most shocking moments came when the judge ordered a forensic audit of our finances. The results confirmed what I'd suspected. Lisa had transferred over $300, $0 to her brother's offshore account without my knowledge, and she'd been secretly funneling money out of our joint accounts for months. It was clear she was trying to drain me financially, and the judge was furious at her deception. That was a turning point. She no longer had any plausible deniability. Meanwhile, I was trying to rebuild my sense of stability, but it was hard. Every day felt like a new battle, and I was constantly on edge. I'd wake up in the middle of the night worrying about whether she'd try to take the house, the kids, or my business. I'd catch myself checking my phone obsessively, waiting for some new piece of bad news. It was exhausting, but I knew I couldn't let her win. Her attempts at manipulation didn't stop. She kept trying to sway the kids, telling them I was a bad father, that I didn't care about their future. I knew I had to be proactive, so I hired a child psychologist to help me communicate with them and show them the truth. I also kept a detailed diary of her behavior, documenting everything that might be relevant in court. I wanted the judge to see the full picture, not just the stories Lisa was spinning. One day, Lisa crossed a line I never thought she would. She tried to get the court to grant her full custody, claiming I was an unfit parent because I was too busy with my work and neglectful of the kids. I was furious. I had been the one working tirelessly to keep everything afloat, to give my children a stable life. I presented evidence of her attempts to manipulate them, her lies, and her sabotage of my business. The judge saw through her game and awarded me joint custody with supervised visits for her. That was a huge relief, but it didn't stop her from trying to undermine me at every turn. She hired her own team of attorneys to fight for the house and the remaining assets. She claimed she was entitled to half of everything, even though she'd betrayed me on so many levels. The judge was clear. Her lies and misconduct would be taken into account. Still, I knew this was far from over. Throughout this process, I also uncovered something even more troubling. Lisa had been sabotaging my business for years, not just recently. I found emails where she discussed how to ruin me if I ever found out her secrets. She'd been leaking confidential information, spreading false rumors, and even tampering with shipments. It all made sense now. Her constant meddling, her late-night calls with competitors, her attempts to undercut my reputation. She wanted to see me fail, all while pretending to be the devoted wife. That realization hit hard. It confirmed that her betrayal was not just about infidelity or money, it was about revenge. She hated me for the success I'd built, and she'd been working against me from the beginning. I was furious, but I also knew I had to stay composed. This was a battle I had to win legally, with facts and evidence. In the end, I managed to protect most of my assets, including the house and my business. The judge ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen money, and she was barred from interfering with my work. The divorce was finalized, and I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had lost trust, yes, but I'd also gained clarity. I saw her for who she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd betrayed everything we once stood for. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and even the people closest to you can hide the biggest secrets. I also learned that fighting for what's yours requires strength, patience, and a lot of legal help. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the only way to move forward is to confront the truth head-on, even if it's painful. I'm still healing, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, it's this. Don't ignore the signs, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for your life. Now that it's all over, I've had some time to breathe and really think about what happened. Honestly, I don't recognize the person I was before this nightmare started. The betrayal hurt more than I can put into words, trusting someone for years only to find out she'd been scheming behind my back, trying to take everything I built. It's a brutal lesson in how deception can hide behind a pretty face and a fake smile. One thing I've learned is that you can't ignore the signs. I missed so many red flags, her secretive phone habits, the sudden changes in her attitude, the way she'd lie about where she was or who she was talking to. But I was blinded by love, or maybe just by the comfort of what I thought was a perfect life. Now I see that love alone isn't enough. You need honesty, loyalty, and transparency. Without those, everything crumbles. The financial betrayal was worse than I expected, especially discovering she'd moved hundreds of thousands offshore without telling me. It's hard to trust someone who's been secretly working against you for so long. But I also learned that being proactive matters. Getting legal help, documenting everything, and standing your ground is the only way to protect yourself. I fought hard, and I won most of what I was fighting for, but I lost a lot: time, trust, and peace of mind. Most of all, I realize how vital it is to prioritize your mental health. I've gone through so many emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, even guilt. But I've also come to accept that some things are beyond my control, and I had to focus on my own healing. Therapy helped, and so did leaning on friends who believed in me. I'm slowly rebuilding my life piece by piece. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: don't let betrayal define you. It's easy to spiral into despair, but your strength lies in facing the truth and taking action. Protect yourself, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Trust is fragile, but your resilience is stronger. You will get through it, even if it takes time. Today, I'm focusing on my kids, my work, and rebuilding my sense of stability. I can't undo the past, but I can control how I move forward. I've learned that sometimes the biggest betrayal can turn into the biggest lesson about love, about trust, and about resilience. And I know I'll never let anyone deceive me like that again. Life's too short to waste on people who don't have your best interests at heart. I've faced the worst and I've come out stronger. That's all I can ask for.